Now we're joined this morning by Martin McMahon. Martin is a farmer over in O'Callaghan's Mills over near us, and he's also chairman of the Clare ICMSA. Martin, you're welcome to Scariff Bay Community Radio.
Thank you very much, Pat. Thank you.
Martin, we decided to have a chat this morning. There's a new scheme from, I suppose, EEC and the government in Ireland, and maybe the Green Party would have a big part of it, where we're going to re-wetting a lot of the country, especially the bogs.
I suppose, Pat, you can remember, and I can remember going back years ago when there was a lot of men employed on the drainage scheme. You had the Board of Works first, and then the council took over from the Board of Works. And all the rivers and a lot of the main drains throughout the country were all being done. You'd see maybe 17 or up to 20 men working on that. And they kept an awful lot of the country dry. And when I mean dry, roads, land, there was very little flooding because that scheme was a great scheme. It prevented an awful lot of flooding. And I suppose nowadays you hear a lot about climate change. But we remember going back years ago when we were trying to save hay, and there was years when you hardly got any hay, and if you did get it, it was of very poor quality because of the bad years. And you'd always get maybe 2 bad years, and then you'd get a fine year.
Good year, yeah.
So I think a lot of this, that's the talk about climate change, is the lack of drainage, and that's an awful lot of the cause of the flooding. Our rivers now are about a third of the width that they were, and they're about a third higher from the floor up. The ground level of the rivers have increased by 3 and 4 foot because they're not being cleaned. And there was always what they called, there would be a little kind of like a concrete wall put across the rivers high up, to prevent the gravel and the stones going down the river. So those are all knocked and gone now. So the river, when you get a big flood, it's bringing the stones and the gravel all the way down, right down to the mouth of the river, filling up the mouth of the river and filling up the lakes. I have been talking to people who have been out on our own lake near us, Doon Lake, and in a fine summer now, they have to lift the engine of the boat at certain points because of the amount of silt and stuff that's in the bottom of the rivers.
Yeah.
So our floodplains are built on. Our lakes are not the floodplains that we had because there's too much silt and too much stuff gone into them. Yeah. So that's an awful lot of the cause of all the flooding. And it's not really, I don't think, down to climate change. The older people used to say that you got the same amount of rain every year. I don't know, but maybe we've more got this time, but I don't know.
Yeah, of course. A certain amount of would say, I suppose, any river, and if we have a bucket of water and you put sand into fill it and you put water in, well, there's only a half amount of water that you can put into the bucket.
Correct,
you know?
correct.
So, and it's the same with the rivers.
Tis a major problem, and if we go down the road of re-wetting, and I know that Minister Ryan has been asked on several occasions, even at our own AGM, the people of Offaly were there, and they asked him to know, would he give an undertaking that if the wet Bornamona bog, which is being done at the moment, will he give an undertaking that any land that's flooded on around Bornamona, that they'd get compensation, and he's not given any commitment to that.
Yeah. I just I suppose as you're talking there now about Offaly, I have the examiner here. He and silent around in the Shannon in the Shannon Callars flooding. Thousands of acres of silage and hay have been destroyed on farms as a result of the flooding in the Shannon Callars. While the scheme does list farmers who have lost fodder has recently been announced, there are farmers who will have lost considerably more than what the support will provide for. The Save Our Shannon organisation represents farmers in Counties Galway, Offaly, Roscommon, Westmeath and further afield, and who are impacted by major winter and summer flooding on the River Shannon. So it appears when the Shannon floods as well out, and it has ruined all the silage along the...
Correct, Pat. An awful lot of the lanes are leading onto the Shannon have been impacted this year badly by flooding and by the extra water. And I suppose when you take away and again going back to when you build on floodplains and when you put in dams to prevent flooding, which has happened further down, a lot of the Shannon the banks have been risen. It has to flood someplace else. That's exactly what goes wrong when you take out the floodplains, the existing floodplains. There will be new floodplains formed because the extra water has to go somewhere. Yeah.
They're saying here as well about in a lot of harm has been done in the biodiversity of the Kellos. The corncrake is now gone. The colour and all the water and the wild both swans and wildlife are under enormous threat. Their habitats have been destroyed by the water flooding. The grass and hedgerows and drains and the woodland and their homes. So I suppose the constant summer flooding has prevented farmers from grazing land and saving hay this year. Summer floods came in early July and remain since. So I suppose
a lot of farmers in that part of the world are going to be very short of fodder, and as we can see, fodder has gone very expensive at the moment because down along the east coast during the hot weather of this year they got a fierce burning, and they had to
in June.
Yeah, they had to give out silage, and fodder is going to be scarce, so that's going to make it expensive. It's going to be extremely hard on those farmers. So you'll be hoping that some package will be put in place to compensate farmers along the Shannon for the loss of the silage they have lost. And there's a package I know put in place for the tillage men already, because a lot of tillage ground has been gone. No, they didn't get to cut some of it at all. So, and I suppose the other thing that's happening this year as well is that potatoes are going to get scarce because a lot of the ground they weren't able to dig them out.
No harvesting.
Yeah, I see there in the paper as well down in Cork. There was people that were making potatoes out of beetroot.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And they had a few acres of in the ground, and they couldn't get them out of the machine, so they put it up on Facebook would people be able to come in, and they got a lot of people in helping them out, and they took out all the beetroot out of the ground by hand.
Yeah.
Who are these people that came in and helped them?
Well, a lot of neighbours and friends, and
they came from outside counties.
They came outside counties.
There was an amazing the amount of people that turned up, and to just tell you the goodwill that's out there in people if they're asked to do something.
Yeah, and they make potatoes out of it. I never had a potato, a beetroot potato, but obviously there's and they're selling well. They have to take them out of the ground, and they have to leave them for a week or two to take where the sugar will go down, and then they make potatoes of them.
Amazing.
So maybe we'll go on the way the potato
could be an idea, yeah. Would you be in favour? What some people talk about draining the Shannon. What do you make of that? No.
Well, in France, for example, they have a special machine. It's something like a vacuum cleaner, I'm told, that travels in a boat. It sucks all the silt up off of the bed of the river and blows it back in onto the land. So they keep the rivers cleaned on a very regular basis. But definitely the Shannon and all the rivers, because I can see now that depends on the type of bank that's on a river, but a lot of the river banks are a mud bank, and over the years that keeps coming in. And some of the rivers are only a third the width of what they were. So you can imagine if you take 2/3 of a river, if you narrow it up by 2/3, you're left with really what you'd call a drain or a culvert, rather than a river.
The new system now in the council and the OPW is that when they put a machine in the river, they only clean half it.
Correct.
The other half it for the.
Correct. I've seen it, Pat. I've seen that. They'll only allow one side of the river to be cleaned, and within a year you're in serious trouble all over again. We have to go back to what we were doing years ago.
What's the chance of that happening?
Well, sure, I suppose when you have the Green Party dictating policy, it'll be very hard to do that. I think they think that the birds and the bees seems to be more important than the people. But as far as I'm concerned, the people living in their homes, and we can see now where some people, once they're flooded once, they won't get insurance anymore. So that's becoming a major problem. And I think that the people will have to look to have more drainage done and rivers opened up and make sure that not flooding. And the mouth of the rivers, people will tell you that you can walk across the mouth of the rivers in a lot of the places because of the amount of silt that has built up in it.
Well, I was talking to him from O'Brien's Bridge, and he was a fisherman.
Yes.
And he done a lot of fishing over the years up along the Shannon. And he said on the banks, and parts of the Shannon now up along there, up along above O'Brien's Bridge and all up along there, there's parts of it, he said, you can go out now twice as far as you could go out when he was a young lad, with banks of clay. And he said there's actually trees growing outside in the middle of the river.
Correct.
And I see somewhere recently in an article about the Shannon hasn't been dredged since the British came left the country.
Well, they dredged it because of the navigation, isn't it?
Which is 100 years.
Oh, sure.
Which is 100 years.
But how could you expect that you would have flooding if it is that close to the river? Anything, sure, if you left the roads of Ireland, leave them since that time, where would you be able to travel now? You could go nowhere.
No.
You know, you have to have maintenance in anything. Even your house will have to be painted and it will have to be upkept. Anything you do has to have.
I see Pat Hayes here has an article as well. It's on the green page of the Clare Echo, where he's looking for to get the Green River cleaned as well. That there's a huge amount of flooding backing up along above the part of the country.
Yeah, I saw that the other day, and I was saying, well done, Pat Hayes.
And backing over into Tulla, which is the tributaries are supposed to coming into.
Correct. Like from Scariff here now. Going back, I don't know how many years ago, there was a big scheme done to do that, and all the way back up along by Molly Kane's Bridge, which is on the road to Fecal, all up along that river and back up along into Rosslara Lake was all done. That river now is nearly completely closed. There's only just a bare little, less than 1/3 of it flowing now. And usually when you get flooding now, you can see all that. You're on the road to Fecal. You can see where all that has been flooded. If you remember going back a few years ago when we got serious flooding, one man nearly lost his life going to his farm there, where his tractor went in off the road and he was very nearly lost his life. So all that area is in danger of flooding now because of that. So the more, I think, it's well done to look for the drainage. It's great to see somebody looking for it.
Well, you see, I suppose with all the flooding you had, and maybe I suppose maybe there's a certain amount of there has to be a certain amount of climate change in what's happening in the amount of water that's falling. You had down in Wexford there. Well, now I think down in Wexford you had houses flooded, which was the council's fault because they never cleaned out the gullies.
Yes.
And I think the council the councils around the country have to.
They'll have to
stand
put
up to and clean out the gullies properly.
They will, Pat. They'll have to put funding. There was funding always allocated for that drainage, and that funding was taken away years ago, I understand, to put towards roads and that. And I think they'll have to start putting funding back towards drainage and start back at opening the rivers and the main drains in order to keep and the gullies and all that.
And even if they just sucked out the gullies and cleaned them out every year. But I see them over in O'Callaghan's Mills Village, and where we have two forest fellas, and I'd be in charge of them there, and I'd ask them to open the gullies. But there's some of the gullies you can't open, the grills, and they're full of the silt. And you'd imagine that they'd have some sort of a way of coming out and sucking the stuff over the river and taking it.
They should have, Pat. That should be a way.
Some of those machines you're talking about in France.
Yeah. I want to take a copy of someplace else. And
there was huge flooding in Tralee during the year, so I suppose it's just the way things are going. There was huge flooding in Tralee, and you had up in Norway there as well.
That's right.
That's right.
You know. And in Middleton and down around East Cork there in recently, sure.
It is very easy blame it on climate change and get away with it that way, and you won't have to put funding towards it. Then you can blame the skies for flooding, but you have to make sure that you have a place to take the water.
Yeah, I just see there an article on the Examiner: 50 million of damage to roads in Cork after Storm Bebbit, and there's an article here about the mouth of the river. The Ballinacurra River, which flows out in Middleton, there's a big bank of silt on the mouth of the river, and the water came in. The water came in into no houses and came up. Salt water came in and up through the floors.
Imagine.
Of the
See the
houses.
damage that's done to those
The
houses.
windows, yeah.
Oh yeah, the mouth of rivers in everywhere, even down at Doon Lake now and everywhere, the mouth of the rivers. But that's because what I was trying to think of the name of the thing they had in the rivers. Sand traps is what they were known as.
Yeah.
They built a wall across the river, far up in the river,
yeah.
and they put in this sand trap. And every few months or whatever,
Yeah.
those were supposed to be cleaned
Cleaned
out.
out,
So you
yeah.
took out the sand and the gravel and the stones that was in them to allow for the flooding to bring that. Now all that's going down the river.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's why you have the mouth of the rivers all blocked with the
Blocked
sand
up,
and
yeah,
silt
yeah.
because it's gone down to the mouth.
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
river. And it's filling the lakes. Your lake was your place to hold the excess water.
Water,
so if that was the floodplain, like.
Yeah, it was.
So once that's filling up, you're losing the capacity to take all this extra water. The same way with where they built the houses on the floodplains.
Yeah,
you're
I suppose
losing
we're
that
lucky enough
capacity.
here, and we're lucky enough here in East Clare, where we have a lot of lakes. Well, at least the water, when the water goes down and it will flood up in the land, it will go away maybe after a week or 10
Yes,
days. But so
yes.
in other parts of the country, they don't have that facility.
No,
where the
and
water-
like we talk a lot about pollution, but while that excess water is over land and grass rotten,
Yeah,
grass rotten is actually one of the biggest polluters that you can have.
Yeah.
So like when the grass rots and that water then goes back to the lake, you have a lot of pollution going in from that extra water.
I suppose we want salvage today anyway. After.
Well, no. Pat.
I suppose another thing there, I was just looking at David, and we might just have a chat in a minute about it. Is limousine heifer sells for 9,500.
Huge money.
Huge money.
Huge money.
Dennis Lehane has the story here. I just said I'd say it to you. Christmas came early for sellers at the Elite Commercial Haltered Cattle Sale. The sale was held in Ballybuffet and Stranraer in County Cooperative Livestock Mart on Saturday. The whole of Charlie's limousines, Belgian Blue stock on offer. Top breeds that will always demand top interest. A catalogue of 150 weanling bulls, heifers and breeding heifers met with a fired up trade with prices of 7,300, 6,800 and 5,300 achieved. But the man that made the big money was a fellow by the name of Michael Lynch from Donegal. He's well-bred heifer of Elite Ice Cream was the dame, I suppose. Weighing 460 kgs and sold in a packed sales ring on Saturday for a whopping 9,500. I thought she was an elite.
That would be.
Breed, pure breed.
She would be very, very well bred, and I suppose here in the west of Ireland, I'm all the time talking about the great quality cattle that's produced in the west of Ireland, and I suppose we have a lot of fragmented land, we have poorer quality land, but yet we turn out the best cattle in the country. They come from all over. They come from Roscommon, they come from Meath, they come from all over for the quality cattle that's produced. And some of those are what they call a hybrid. Bred. And there's huge work put into breeding cattle like that. And you are paid for that type of quality. But there's a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of extra effort goes into breeding that type of cattle.
Yeah, she wouldn't want to die.
Oh God, no, definitely not. Definitely not.
A soft sofa under her or something.
And can you insure cattle like that now, Martin?
You can insure bulls and that the sport will say at sales, but a lot of the time they won't insure those very expensive cattle because it's too big a risk for the insurance company. So it can be hard enough to get that type of cattle, insured. Yeah. But it's great to see that one of the things that this new suckler scheme, SCIP is called, and there has been some problems with it from the point of view that it was supposed to be finished by the 31st of October, then they extended it to 24th of November. But I have been on to ICBF and I've been on to the department, and I put a lot of effort into it in the last couple of weeks to try to get it extended again, because the results of the genotyping wasn't back. And when the results of the genotyping wasn't back, the people didn't know you had to have 50% of your herds had to be 4 and 5 stars.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
because that wasn't back, they didn't know the results. So if they were shot 2 heifers or 10 heifers, they'd go out to the mart and buy them in order to bring them up to the 50%. But the results weren't back. But anyway, the good news is it's extended again to the 22nd of January. So that's given people a chance to get the extra stock if they do need them.
Yeah, and when you're, I suppose, when we were all travelling around and we were all brought up in the fairlands, and when you're travelling around East Clare, anywhere in County Clare, you would see some fine cattle.
Oh, God, you would, definitely.
In fields and in nets and everywhere.
Yes.
And very, very well bred, and they're all very well bred now, all the stock.
Correct, Pat. Like, as I said, the west of Ireland is noted for its quality cattle.
Yeah. And Nelson, I suppose, as you're here now, with a few more minutes, we might talk about the acre scheme. Do you know this new acre scheme, that's replaced the
GLAS.
The GLAS.
The GLAS was the last scheme, and that's over. So there's no acre scheme, and that came in last year. So there was a big take-up on it last year, but there was a good few people that didn't get around to getting in, and it's open again now. So there's about 4,000, I think, spaces left. And from what we're hearing, that we don't think it will be even enough for that there'll be big uptake again in loss, because I suppose the single farm payment was set up going back many years ago in order to make sure that there was a supply of food in Europe. And now the single farm payment has been reduced, and you have all these various different schemes been coming in, such as the new acre scheme. And if farmers don't participate in those schemes, well, they'll be well back in their payments because of the reduction in the single farm payment. So acres is there's two versions. There's the ordinary acres and there's a CP acre scheme. Those that are in the CP areas, there's parts here of the county of Clare that are in the CP area, and they can draw up to around 7,000, plus all the different options which can bring them up if they have enough of land now to draw the maximum. And they can draw then up to 10,000 if they're going for all the options. But the options, you'll spend nearly the money that you'll put into the options, because you'll have to do the various options that has to be done. So it is a good scheme to get extra money.
And is there controls in the amount of manure and all that you're supposed to
Well, there's going to be controls even if you're not in acres, because you can see there that the dairymen are already culling cows. So there's a lot of actually Frisian cows being culled at the moment in order to reduce the numbers. And I suppose we're all going to be affected by the night. So there will be less nitrogen going out.
Yeah, and would we say putting in the clover crop, is that an option for people now? Putting clover crops?
They're highly recommending that, because the clover is a natural. It naturally brings the nitrogen from the air. So the extra clover put into the swat is definitely a big help. And the only risk is the white clover is safe, but the red clover is actually very dangerous for bloat. So unless that you're cutting the fields for silage and sticking to cutting silage off that fields, red clover is actually dangerous for bloat. So if somebody has it put in, they need to be careful to watch the cattle for fear of bloat. But the white clover is safe.
And it's other things now you're supposed to do, like cutting hedges and drainage and all that in this new scheme.
Well, I suppose the hedges are always allowed to be cut, and they will be allowed, I understand, cutting, but you, under the different options, you can actually keep out from ditches, and you can pay out, and you get paid to allow the biodiversity and the birds and the bees in these places. So I suppose, the one thing I see is that there's a lot of talk about reducing numbers, but the people are not reducing. The population is increasing the whole time, and if you keep coming back, and we talk about our climate and we say, right, we complain about the rain, but we probably have one of the best climates in the world for producing food. And I think we do an awful lot of good, because we export 90% of what we produce in this country. So we feed an awful lot of people outside of this country, which is a great thing to see. And we see in England now that food is actually getting scarce, and they're beginning to see that where they're wondering where they'll get, and we send a lot of our food goes to England. It's our nearest neighbour, so I think that we want to make sure that we don't reduce too much the amount.
There's certain people and politicians in this country, and they'd rather have seed trees growing in fields than to be producing food.
Correct. That is
Who would
the big
those certain
problem.
politicians now be, Pat?
Well, there's a certain amount of them all around the west of Ireland. They put trees in every field that they got.
Well, I understand. I know people that's on an environmental pillar, and they tell me that at a lot of the meetings, it's talked about that what are we producing all this food for? Sure, all we need is enough to feed ourselves. I think that's a very selfish way to be.
Yeah.
I think when you think of all the people all over the world who can produce food, take the like of Belgium and those countries, huge population and very little place to produce food, and they need imported food. So
You might have a bit of an interest, Martin, in our next guest, and so far as he's a guest, I recorded him during the week talking on the very topic you're touching on there.
God.
So yeah.
So just before we go to, I see a report that was done in the States, some kind of is it a McKinsey report on food, and they said is it by 20. I don't know what date, what year it was now, but going forward, the world would need as much land as Brazil, the size of Brazil, to feed the world going forward.
yeah.
Extra.
Yeah. Food is definitely going to be it's going to be a big problem, and food is definitely going to get dear. And the amount of people producing food are actually getting less, because if you look at the age profile of farmers in Ireland, they're getting older by the new time. If you look at the maps and see the amount of suckler cows that's been taken out, there's going to be less people producing food, and that's going to be a major problem.
I think it was on here a while back with John S. Kelly, and John S. said to you, Mickey Joe down the valley, he was asking you to explain it, and you said, Mickey Joe down the valley are getting very scarce.
Very good.
Good answer, I think. So, Martin, I think our time is up. We have to move on to the next item. So thanks for your
welcome,
input.
Pat. You're welcome.
And you can stay on and listen to this if you like. There's a man from the Burren. He's he's a Dutchman, and he's farming up in the Burren. And we have a recording if you want to listen in full time.
I have.
Yeah.
Big grand.